is the Don Le Batard Show.
Do you think Bob Horner had rugged hands?
Horny.
Don Le Batard.
I have sand in my beard, my knee is bloody, and I'm a real mess.
Stugotz.
Daryl Morey pulled a rabbit out of his hat.
This is the real bass.
And finally, your Stugotz of the day. A man in his 40s stands accused of living as a blind person for 8 years and fraudulently... Oh, my God. I just hit a roadblock. I didn't realize this was a word I can't say. Fraudulently? I can't say it. Oh, my God. And finally, your Stugotz of the day. A man in his 40s stands accused of living as a blind person for 8 years and fraudulently... I can't do it. Oh, no.
Bass is pumping.
Wait a minute. We can have some... Go ahead. You can do it.
It's a stunning day for
Power
me.
through it. Power through it. Let's go. First of all, but
fraudulently. It's the LY. Fraudulently.
Yes.
Try again. And finally, your Stugotz of the day. A man in his 40s stands accused of living as a blind person for 8 years in Fraggle Rock receiving... Well, I cannot do it.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Fraudulently?
Reached the extreme fringes of the apocalypse. He has now resorted in his desperation to eating as toast the end pieces of breads in a loaf. Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. Do you eat? Because Chris was arguing with him, saying they get a bad rap. They're misunderstood. But put it on the poll. Do you eat the end pieces of bread in a loaf? The thing that I wanted to talk about today, and Greg Cote is on the periphery here. He has used all his technology. He just informed us moments ago that he finally ordered delivery of groceries because Chris has been yelling at him. This is really stressing families. It's not just that domestic abuse is up all over the country. Like, this is stressing families that are being put together. It can bring many of them together that get along, but the ones that don't get along, there is a lot of infighting. Stugotz's dad just got done yelling at him.
He screamed at me yesterday. We'll get to that in a second. But do you think that this virus is going to cause more babies or more divorces? I mean, seriously.
Oh, that's a good poll question. At Le Batard Show, is this virus going to cause more babies or divorces? I do wonder, as you're looking, because I'm looking outside and helicopters are going by and there are cruise ships just off of the shore. I do wonder about anybody who's going to bring a baby into this particular world right now, given how uncertain things are. But some of you don't have choices on that front. Sometimes that just ends up happening.
The wheels have been set in motion, Dan.
Thank you, Stugotz.
Yeah.
The thing that I wanted to talk about, though, and I can't talk about it enough because not since the O.J. Simpson documentary have I wanted to consume something quite this way. Netflix does those dark crime things very well, and people obviously have a huge appetite for it because you will find things on Netflix that are documentary style that are just super bizarre. But I don't think I've seen anything as bizarre, and I'm only 2 episodes in on this Tiger King story that has this like wildfire word of mouth. It's the number one thing on Netflix. What it's about so far, what I've seen that it's about is that it's 4 different people who raise loons, 4 loons, who live in this exotic animal kingdom world where they create their private zoos. And the most normal one that I've seen so far is the Cuban Miami Scarface kingpin who was sentenced to 100 years in prison. This is the most normal one. By leaps and bounds, the most normal one. Ron Magill's going to be on with us later. He knows all of these people. He knows all of them. And they got into episode 2. At the end of episode 2, this is how rich this is in color. At the end of episode 2 is when they drop in, hey, and also a husband disappeared. It may have been a murder. We don't know. Just spoiler alert, a husband has disappeared. And so what I wanted to talk to you guys about, because I remember in 2011 or so, 2010, back when the magazine industry was flourishing, I remember reading this article in GQ, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, this can't be real, where somewhere in Ohio, A guy had a private zoo, went a little bit crazy, and just released all his animals, and then all of a sudden, the police force had to deal with a bunch of exotic animals running wild through Ohio and just started killing exotic animals. And I'm reading this story, and it's unbelievably rich and unbelievably strange. And then a month later or so, I read the same story in Esquire, but it's much better and much deeper, and it ends up winning a National Magazine award for being like the best story of the year. These exotic animal people are crazy. Stugotz has seen one episode. Mike, how many have you seen?
I'm like you. I've watched 2 episodes, Dan.
And I'm telling you, Stugotz, that if I had the time, if I didn't have to, be up in the morning and everything else, I would have absolutely watched all 7 of these one after another last night. I would have watched it without being able to put it down because the people in it are so bizarre. Like, everyone is stranger than the next person, and they're cults. They're absolutely these cults, and I'm only 2 episodes in, and you've got, in one camp, you've got this guy who's basically taking people who are straight out of prison, and they work for next to nothing. They're eating expired meat because of how much it costs to just feed things like big cats, and they're breeding big cats. So you've got these people who are working for next to nothing. And
most of which have lost limbs.
Yeah,
That's right.
They're immensely loyal. One of them lost an arm, did not sue him, didn't do anything, came back to work 5 days later.
There is a guy named Joe Exotic in the middle of this that has 2 husbands. He's got 2 husbands, and I don't think he's the one with the strangest living arrangement in the thing. I can't believe I'm saying it, but there's this other dude. I don't even know how would you describe, Mike, you've been talking about this guy all morning.
Doc Antle?
How would you describe him? How would you describe any of these people?
Chubby Ted Nugent.
All right, excellent description. So, Joe Exotic, if I've got like 20 seconds to describe somebody, I would say mullet, lots of earrings, sort of cowboy gay.
I thought it was a mockumentary at first, and I thought he was being portrayed by Eddie Izzard.
He's making music videos. He's terrible at music.
Whoa.
The music
I saw
is pretty
Tiger.
good, yeah.
I saw Tiger kind of slaps.
Surprisingly good voice, I gotta be honest.
That was like a Milli Vanilli situation because his voice his singing voice is quite good, and it doesn't match his speaking voice. I wouldn't be surprised if this uncovers that someone else saying that Joe Exotic's voice is actually just like somebody else like in the Caribbean somewhere.
This is what I'm telling you guys because Chris and Billy and Cody and Roy and Tony haven't seen any of this yet. This thing will get its claws into you very quickly because the people are so colorfully and richly totally insane. Like totally insane. All of them. The heroes, like this is what happens, okay? This is what happens in episode 2. The one that you might describe as the most normal is the one that may have murdered her husband. Like
Well, I'll go straight to episode 3 now. Thanks.
No, trust me on this, Stugotz. I'm not ruining this for anybody. It's in. I don't know how many deaths there are in this thing. I don't know what the strangest thing is in this thing.
I love how matter of fact all the people with like Miami connections, because of course there's a Miami connection.
Mario from Miami
Yeah.
is just totally Scarface.
Yeah.
He's absolutely Scarface.
It just toss it in, and she killed her husband, right? And it's just like yeah. She fed him to the tiger.
Wait,
What?
but one of the groups, though, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I didn't get to episode 2 because Abby said I'm not watching this anymore after episode 1, so I am left to my own devices in terms of watching this moving forward, and I will. But in that first episode, there appeared to be one group that was trying to take the tigers away from these 2, ridiculous groups and preserve and save the tiger, give them a nice
bogus.
place to
No,
live.
Everyone in this is evil and strange.
Wow, I love
yes, everyone in this is totally out of their mind. I'm not kidding you when I tell you, Stugotz, Mario from Miami, okay, who is basically just selling drugs to feed his exotic animal habit, whose family sleeps with monkeys. I'm not kidding you when I tell you that Mario from Miami is the one who seems sanest, and the guy somehow got around a 100-year prison sentence. What do you have, Billy?
Oh my God, I think that's the guy that let us interview the Panther for the Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Mario from Miami?
I think you're right.
I'm sure that's the guy that let us interview his panther.
Tell me the story. What happened? I don't remember. He let you go over there. You did a.
We interviewed a horse and a panther to preview the Panthers versus the Broncos Super Bowl, and I'm pretty sure this is the guy that let us interview a panther. Oh my God.
Billy, I'm telling you, as soon as you start watching this, you're going to come on tomorrow and you're going to have watched all 7 episodes of this, because it is absolutely spreading the way very few things do, but the way that things do in the modern age when something is popular. The word of mouth on this thing is totally ridiculous because everyone's having the same experience with this documentary that we are.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. At Progressive, they are making things even easier. They'll help you bundle your home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more today at Progressive.com or call 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Here's your SportsCenter update. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Now, I know it's not Abe, but I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but it's definitely not Abe. There's no way the Japanese Prime Minister's name is Shinzo Abe. It's impossible. But anyway, Shinzo says IOC President Thomas Bach have concluded that the games in Tokyo must be rescheduled to a date beyond 2020, but not later than the summer of 2021 to safeguard the health of the athletes, everybody involved in the Olympic Games, and the international community. The NFL Physician Society is discontinuing physicals for players amid the coronavirus pandemic. The group told both the league and its Players Association. The league itself has not clarified yet whether teams still can arrange for a player to undergo a physical in the geographic region near his new home. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
Dan Le Batard.
Some people might think that I love you are the 3 best words together. For me, that's not what the 3 best words together are.
Stugotz.
The 3 best words together are Stugotz just making a point and going, how's that sound? Or a derivative, how about that?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Here, you can eat some of this. How about that? How's that sound? I don't think there are 3 better words in the language.
I didn't think you guys noticed, man. It's
We've been
incredible. I'm glad
watching
you
you.
like it. How about that?
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
It is perhaps the defining cultural tale of 20th century America, one that centers around 2 of our country's greatest fixations, race and celebrity. Directed by Peabody, Emmy, and Academy Award winner Ezra Edelman, my boy. OJ, Made in America. Watch the documentary this week starting tonight with parts 1 and 2 at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
There's an opening here for Art of Conversation if anybody wants it. If it can't get on during a pandemic, how is it ever going to get on again? Mike Tyson and Pat Riley, Art of Conversation. Let's lobby Bristol to throw it up on a channel somebody's watching as opposed to opposite the Super Bowl, which is what they like to do up there in Bristol. Stugotz, do you know what Dallas Braden is looking like these days? Dallas Braden, the former Major League pitcher who threw a perfect game on Mother's Day. We've said before that he looks a bit like Kleinfeld from Carlito's Way.
Yeah.
But have you seen what he looks like lately? Because I just texted you what he looks like if you have not seen it yet. Because we were making fun of Ben Roethlisberger appearing yesterday as if he had emerged from.
Whoa!
Yeah. All right. So let me try and explain this to the audience as Mike Ryan just walked away muttering the last segment, because what's the name of the guy from the Tiger King, the guy you were mentioning? You said,
Doc Antle.
You said he was Ted Nugent, and then he walked away muttering, saying because he's a thicker Ted Nugent that he looks like Ted Nougat, and you didn't get the joke off on time.
It's a shame. It's a good one.
So it looks like Dallas Braden is balding, okay? He's balding in the front, but he's got an enormous amount of hair everywhere else, and it looks like he has just placed his finger in an electrical socket because the hair is flying all over the place. And we have over the years been making fun of Dallas Braden in a way that tickles and delights Tim Kirkshin, because we've said that Dallas Braden looks like a wolfman in the middle of his transformation. He looks like a Van Gogh self-portrait. He looks like a retired 1980s adult film star who found a second career in banking, a Renaissance-era thinker who vehemently believes the earth is flat, a musician in the Muppets band, a guy who runs an erotic pottery shop with his wife, featured in an episode of HBO's Real Sex from the mid-90s. The drama teacher who every chance he gets shows the kids how he'd do it, walks off angrily, slumps in his chair, and yells action. And how would you describe to the people what it is that the look that Dallas Braden is going for? Because he looks even crazier, Stugotz, than Ben Roethlisberger does.
He does. Well, the tweet you sent me says he looks like Marv from Home Alone 2, which he does. He looks exactly like that. But there's a hint of Jesus in there, and there's a hint of crazy in there, you know? A lot of crazy.
Evil clown at a carnival?
That's a great one. Evil clown at a carnival is a fantastic one. Yes, that is exactly what he's going for there.
I don't know what he's going for there, but it's an amazing look that he has established. Greg Cote of the Miami Herald is going to do a Back in My Day here in about 10 minutes from now. Did you see what happened? Mike Greenberg sent out a company-wide thank you to Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw has come out and said publicly that he doesn't understand what Tom Brady did, why Tom Brady would go to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I'm not sure whether Mike Greenberg is sending out that thank you because yesterday he had the take that Brady would get to a Super Bowl before Belichick would, or if he was just grateful that somebody has said something so there is some sports content that they can make 15 minutes out of arguments out of. Like, I'm honestly not sure what Mike Greenberg was thanking everybody for.
If I had to guess, I mean, he's sitting there, I think, by himself. He throws it to Dan Orlovsky and other, Dominique Foxworth, but I think he is sending that company-wide email simply thanking Terry Bradshaw for giving them something to chew on for 2 hours, because I have been watching Greeny here from my office, and man, does he look alone. And that's because he is alone. All alone. So I'm sure he's thankful that he had something to talk about. I mean, this Brady story is all we got left, Dan.
Can I persuade you to think about something a little differently as new information trickles in on the Bill O'Brien, Deandre Hopkins thing? I know it's not going to be easy, but it's rare that you get the kind of consensus where everyone immediately questioned what it is that Bill O'Brien was doing, myself included. I am not exonerating myself here. But Bill O'Brien has more information on who DeAndre Hopkins is than the rest of us. And it's not something that I'd considered until I read today, Stugotz, that the Eagles weren't interested in DeAndre Hopkins. That reports were that the Eagles were offered Hopkins. Now, the Eagles need wide receivers. The Eagles were as bad a receiving core last year as anyone had in the entire league. So it made me wonder. It gave me pause. The fact that the Eagles sat that out, the fact that the Eagles could have gotten in there for, one would imagine, something pretty cheap, given that what DeAndre Hopkins went for. And then when you combine that with DeAndre Hopkins, according to Michael Irvin, saying, being offended that in that meeting that Bill O'Brien was talking to him about babies' mamas and talking to him about Aaron Hernandez with a comparison, and then DeAndre Hopkins turning around and saying, I have nothing but respect for Bill O'Brien. What Michael Irvin reported has been blown out of proportion. All of that information trickling in gave me some pause there on, well, wait a minute. What did Bill O'Brien know that the rest of us didn't know? Why would Bill O'Brien simply be a fool in a way that allows us all by consensus to laugh at him? When the Eagles pass on DeAndre Hopkins,
right,
it makes me reconsider, hey, what don't I know here?
Dan, here's the problem with the Hopkins trade. It happened right on the heels of the Vikings getting a first-round pick from the Bills for Stephon Diggs. And everyone thinks that DeAndre Hopkins is a better wide receiver than Stephon Diggs because he is. And so the problem with that trade, I don't think most people would consider what it is you're saying. They just wouldn't because of the timing of that trade. Because how can you get a first-round pick for Stephon Diggs, yet you can't get one for DeAndre Hopkins, who many consider to be a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL? I don't think people think along those lines.
Wait a
They just
minute,
look at Dan. They just look at the talent and the stats.
Okay,
and
but
they don't think about that stuff. They
But
won't
you
even
don't think
consider
the
it.
Eagles? But you don't think the Eagles have more of a vested interest than anyone in getting a top 3 receiver in the NFL? Why would they pass on that?
I don't know, but of course they do. Of course they have more information. Of course they're more invested. I'm wondering, did they shop him to every team? Was he available to any team? That was the best possible deal they could get. He's one of the best receivers I've ever seen.
Stugotz, okay, but the Eagles could use any kind of receiver who could catch a football.
True.
There was that story in Philadelphia where, the guy was making fun. The guy caught a baby that was thrown from a burning building and was, making jokes about how he had better hands than
Nelson Aguilar, who just signed with the Raiders. I believe we should, just to play devil's advocate, they did get a second-round draft pick and David Johnson. They might have internally valued that more than just a first-round pick.
Dan Batard.
A few blocks from here, somebody.
I don't know what happened there, but let's segue Stugotz into Casper.
I thought I was making a very good point.
I thought you were too, but evidently Bristol did not. We will have a back in my day for you coming up next. Stugotz, tell the people about Casper. Clearance sale going on right now. If you want the most comfortable bed at clearance prices, you'll want to hear what Stugotz has to say right here.
Yep, we've all heard of Casper, the sleep company with outrageously comfortable products at not so outrageous prices. And with their current end-of-season clearance, you could save up to 20% on the mattress of your dreams. Save up to 20% on mattresses now through March 26, 2020. Offer expires March 23rd, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific. Save 10% off the Essential, 20% off the Casper and the Wave. Limit one offer per customer and order. Please see Casper.com/terms for additional terms and conditions.
Dan Le Batard.
I don't know anything.
Stugotz.
I don't remember what I was going to talk about. So in those instances, what I have is a default that just makes fun of Stugotz.
You're welcome.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. Pennzoil synthetic motor oils are made from natural gas. It gives you unbeatable engine protection. The proof is in the Pennzoil, based on Sequence 4A wear test using SAE 5W-30. Here's your SportsCenter update. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, or Abe.
Why do you keep making him Jewish?
Well, I mean, it's spelled A-B-E. I mean,
the Japanese Prime Minister is not Jewish, I assure you.
I mean, how would you say A-B-E? I mean, I say it Abe, Honest Abe. I mean,
Abe.
Honest Abe. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and IOC President Thomas Bach have concluded that the games of the 33rd Olympiad in Tokyo must be rescheduled to a date beyond 2020, but not later than the summer of 2021, to safeguard the health of the athletes, everybody involved in the Olympic Games, and the international community. The NFL Physician Society is discontinuing physicals for players amid the coronavirus pandemic. The group told both the league and its Players Association yesterday. The league itself has not clarified yet whether teams still can arrange for a player to undergo a physical in the geographic region near his home. And finally, a man in Cyprus who was self-quarantined during the COVID-19 pandemic found a genius way to keep up obligations with his furry friend. On Wednesday, Vakis Dimitroi shared a video on Instagram of a drone walking his dog down the street. The pooch appeared to be happy as he wagged his tail while getting some exercise on an empty street while the drone hovered above. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
So Greg Cote of the Miami Herald will give us a back in my day in just a moment. He is confused some by modern technology. There's a lot of funny, interesting things happening with old people. Chris has been mocking Tony Kornheiser all morning because Kornheiser admitted yesterday that he's never played a video game of any kind, that Tony Kornheiser just simply hasn't played a video game. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Are you surprised that Tony Kornheiser has never once played a video game? But before we get to Greg Cote's Back in My Day. Meanwhile, Mike Ryan's dad is preening because Mike Ryan's dad looks like he's about 45 years old. So he's lining up at grocery stores during these senior hours, and he's just dying to get carded because he's like, go ahead. You guys can't believe that. You guys think that I'm cheating the seniors here, right? Because we're making special hours for the seniors so they don't get knocked over by the teenagers fighting over toilet paper.
He's not even going there because he has to. He's just going there for a confidence boost. I texted him when they announced these hours. I'm like, how devastated are you going to be if no one asks you your age? He's like, gutted. I would be gutted. And he went today, got carded. He's like, it was all worth it, son. And also, I got you Clorox wipes.
Dan, when's the last time you've been carded? Like, have you been carded recently? Because I get angry at people when they card me.
Yeah, sometimes I get carded just because, bars have strict rules where they're just carding everybody because they must. But it's not because I look any kind of young. I will say, though, that yesterday I went out for about the first time in 7 days. And it's not just that it's an apocalyptic zombie land that's strangely and surreally empty. There was a person outside of Walgreens, I'm not making this up, whispering to me the way that the people do here on the street when they're trying to sell you cocaine, saying, we got toilet paper.
Oh, man.
We got, like whispering it to me.
Well, did you get any? I mean,
yeah, I did. I don't even need any, but I don't need any toilet paper, but I rushed in there and got toilet paper. Yes, for no good reason.
One thing I discovered is the Amazon delivery people, I've been getting like essentials via Amazon Prime several days out. And I had a bottle of wine and some White Claws delivered, and they carded me. They wouldn't hand it to me until I presented my ID to them.
Greg Cote was buying liquor by delivery, and because he doesn't want to run into anybody, just left his ID sitting on the floor in front of his house. You know what else I got yesterday? And I'm not kidding you. It was like finding treasure buried underneath the earth. A tiny little 99-cent bottle of hand sanitizer.
Oh, wow.
Yes, look at you guys.
Nice.
You're the
Jealous, man. Cost you $99 though, right? I mean,
I would have paid that. I asked them for a second one. They're like, sorry, sir, we only give one per customer. Only one per customer. Time now, and let's get that imaging ready. Time now for Greg Cote's Back in My Day.
And now, it is time to take a trip down memory lane. Here's your guide, Greg Cote, with Back in My Day.
Services. So we're all hunkered down inside our homes as we confront the worst health crisis in more than 100 years, an escalating global pandemic, while America simultaneously faces its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. But other than that, you know me, I'm always one to look on the bright side, even if I need a NASA-grade telescope to see it. And so I will say there has never been a time to shut off the rest of the world and be quarantined in the crib than right now. The internet and a trusty laptop allow many of us, if we're lucky, to work from home. We can get groceries delivered and left on our doorstep. We can socially interact and video chat remotely with services like Zoom and Skype. And Lord knows we can consume entertainment more easily than ever before with subscription streaming services that bring us on-demand movies and television. Music too. Netflix, Prime, Hulu, Disney+, ESPN+, HBO Now, iFlix, YouTube Premium, Apple TV, and many more, all ready to entertain us with the push of a button or a laptop click. I'll admit a lot of this is foreign language to me. I've never even heard of Zoom until Christopher installed it on my laptop yesterday. Pablo Torre put together a video I was a small part of last week. Somebody told me excitedly it had been picked up by UpRocks. My reaction was, what the hell is UpRocks? My wife told me once we had a Fire Stick because our smart TV wasn't being efficient. A Fire Stick? What are we doing, burning down our TV? All of this hyper technology is coming in, I'll admit, especially now. It's a godsend, a shield against stir craziness, a way to stay connected, to feel connected. Still, part of me longs for the old days. Not only those halcyon days when I wasn't terrified to shake somebody's hand, horrified if they sneezed, washing my hand 40 times a day, before all the cheering stopped because sports disappeared, but also the good old days before technology steered everything. My wife loves to binge watch. You know what I miss? Watching a show when it was on, not when you chose to. I miss a play for TV. If it's Saturday night at 8, that means All in the Family. Boy, the way Glenn Miller played. Songs that made the hit parade. Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days. Let's all hop in a time machine, please, and go back. We don't even have to go back that far. I want to go out and walk into a crowded Blockbuster Video again, or a Peaches record store. I want 3 networks on my Zenith console television set and a newspaper on my front lawn. I'm Greg Cote, and that's how it was back in my day.
Speaking of old, look at him. He's breathless. He's winded. He got the coronavirus while doing that. Speaking of old, we will make fun of Michael Wilbon next.
Fake Marty Smith, you're on ESPN Radio.
Stugotz.
Hey, Benno! It's Marty Party! What are you guys doing? Hey, Stu!
Hey, Marty!
Yeah! Hey, guys, hey! I just parachuted out of a plane, man, and in Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa just got down here. I'm with Nick Saban, man!
Yeah,
we're about to go bass fishing on some jet skis!
Yeah, that's great.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
If you missed any of our interviews, check them out on demand in the Dan Le Batard podcast, brought to you by Capital One Quicksilver Card, earning unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere. Capital One, what's in your wallet? All guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
There are some people in sports doing pretty cool things during a time that all of us could use some normalizing. Scott Van Pelt is one of them on the Nighttime Sports Center, where a lot of seasons that were ended early, a lot of kids or young people who felt like they were robbed of something as they were headed toward a special season and everything shut down. He is celebrating them in a way that they might not get celebrated otherwise. And also Joe Buck is doing something just to pass the time under quarantine. You could check him out at Buck on Twitter. But here he is just offering basically to call play-by-play of household events. You send him videos, and he will do some play-by-play on them. And here he is calling an argument between, I guess, his wife and his child. Let's listen to Joe Buck doing the play-by-play on that.
This is called negotiation, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you want to watch?
Michelle on the left is trying to prepare dinner. Wyatt on the right, fighting back a yawn, dressed like kind of a half Fred Flintstone.
You do want to watch a
And he wants to watch Blippi, folks. Oh, and he's hit his mom. He has hit his mom. Mom is playing it up. Wyatt is crying. All hell is broken loose inside this house. Quarantine day 7. For us, it's about day 13.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, but they're hugging. Everything has come back together.
Great.
At Buck, you can send him your videos. He, too, is struggling with some of the technology, so he's not getting it up as fast as he would like. I meant the video. And so here's Michael Wilbon, speaking of old people reacting like Michael Wilbon is behaving as if there's not a pandemic going on. Look at Michael Wilbon. He goes to Twitter. Everybody is going crazy. The apocalypse is upon us. Everyone is locking their doors because zombies might be there. And Michael Wilbon is doing this on Twitter. So people voting in this greatest college basketball player poll on ESPN select Zion Williamson, who didn't get to the Final Four, over Danny Manning, who led his Kansas team to a title. People know nothing in capital letters, unless they saw it this morning on SportsCenter. #sad. Now, I am afraid to look on Twitter to see what I'm going to find with #sad. Like, there's going to be all sorts of bad things on there. Probably not a lot related to Zion Williamson outrage. But here, coming to the defense very quickly of Wilbon, Stugotz, our friend Bob Ryan.
Of course.
He writes, amen, amen. Amen, 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 amen. I still can't get over the 88 title game. Oklahoma was clearly the deeper, more talented team. Didn't matter. KU had Danny. And then parenthetically, and Milt Newton.
And they're both right. I got to be honest with you.
It's all that matters.
Yes.
Chris, what did so your reaction was what when you saw Tony Kornheiser admit that he has not ever played a video game? That is pretty shocking. That's even Kornheiser's 71 years old. It's pretty damn shocking that he's never played any kind of video game.
I'm not certain I'm buying it. Like, he's never gone to a bar and just stumbled into a game of Miss Pac-Man. Like, are you kidding me?
Okay, so good. You're accusing him of lying. Very good. I was talking to Chris, though.
Oh, sorry.
I actually think it's I'm not surprised by it at all. If you said to me, who in life has never played a video game in their entire life? I don't know if I would have said Tony Kornheiser, but if you said it to me, I'd be like, that's the winner. I can't beat that.
But how is that even possible? I don't understand. I mean, Tony Kornheiser was a young person once. When was Pong introduced? Wasn't Pong the first video game? Was that what was that? Was it Asteroids? What was the no? Pong had to be before Asteroids, and that had to be mid 70s. Oh, Chris doesn't know what Pong is. Pong is.
You're not talking my language right now. I don't really. I mean, I know ping pong. I know beer pong.
No, Pong is just a game. It's basically two sticks hitting a ball back and forth, and that's all it was. And it was. And it was the height of technology.
It was the original video game. They debuted it back in 1958 when Greg was a kid.
All right, so 1958 is about when Kornheiser was a kid, was it not? Like, how do you go your entire childhood without, at any point, playing a video game?
It's actually pretty equal, I think, to Pablo Torre saying that he's never chewed gum before. I don't know which one of those is more. I don't know if I believe either of them. I feel like Pablo's chewed gum, and I bet Tony Kornheiser's played Pong, right? He's just going for the whole old guy thing, right?
Okay, very good. So he's a liar, too. Everybody's a liar. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Le Batard Show. What is stranger? So
Takes one to know one, Dan. I mean,
we have found people stranger than the people on The Tiger King on Netflix. It is Tony Kornheiser and Pablo Torre. Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Stranger fact that Pablo Torre has never chewed gum or that Tony Kornheiser has never played a video game. By the way, we're going to get serious here in about 10 minutes or so when Pablo Torre joins us with Mina to talk about some of what's happening with Asian racism in the country. I wanted to talk to both of them because you've got the coronavirus being called, the Chinese virus, and it's ending up with, violence. There's just random acts of cruelty directed at Asians, and so I wanted to talk to both of them about that. But Greg Cote, what do you got, Stugotz?
I just wanted to know during that segment if I could work on my all-time Pacer team. That's all.
I want your all-time Knicks team. I actually want that because I think it's going to look. Is it going to look any good? Is it?
Saving that one for last, Dano.
We are creating content though, trying to. No matter how poor it is, Jay Serrano is on a South Beach session that you can check out now. It just dropped, and Greg Cote of the Miami Herald also has an interview with his beloved Juju Gotti, who's got a rap album that is very good. It's very strong. What is on that episode of Greg Cote featuring Greg Cote, Greg?
We talk a lot about...
It's Dan, Stu, and Greg Cote on ESPN Radio.
Are you disturbed at all that Stugotz thinks extortion and blackmail are normal business practices?
Stugotz.
It has to drive you crazy because you are smart, you are well thought out, you are reasonable, you are balanced, and I just come in with blackmail, COB.
And they love you more.
Yep, spot on is what they're saying.
I'm so envious. I want their love.
You're not going to get it.
Their love's important to me. I want the love of dumb people.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. Mina and Pablo Torre expected to join us here in just a second on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. The Carolina Panthers are expected to cut Cam Newton as early as today. Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, the group who owns the Philadelphia 76ers and New Jersey Devils, has notified salaried full-time employees they will be subject to temporary pay cuts of up to 20% and will be moving to a 4-day work week as a result of the ongoing fallout from the coronavirus pandemic. And finally, a California resident's doorbell camera was recording when a package was swiped from their front porch by an unusual thief, a bear, who grabbed a large box with its mouth and dragged it away. The resident who shared the Ring camera footage said the box contained 40 pounds of dog food. They said some of the dog food was recovered. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
During times of crisis, you see some of the best in people, and you often see some of the worst in people. And I've found myself bummed out as some of these videos have circulated of just random Asian people getting beat up because we can be idiots about things. And I wanted to talk to our friends Mina and Pablo Torre about some of what it is that they're feeling as they see that that kind of thing spread, not unlike the virus around the United States. Mina, what can you tell me that you've seen recently that you have found appalling? Because I have seen some folks saying basically that they haven't seen this kind of in-your-face racism since they were kids. They're adults now, and they haven't seen it, in 30 years.
Well, I haven't seen anything because I haven't left my house. I want to be clear about that first. But I've been hearing from friends with family members who have to go into work and work jobs that don't let them stay at home. I'm fine. I mean, look, for me personally, obviously I read Asian, but I don't think, people look at me and they don't always know what to think. But I worry about, my 74-year-old mom who has a dry cough that she's had for years. And I'm already worried about her every day because of that. But now I'm worried about her moving around society and feeling ostracized. I mean, I've seen her deal with racism my entire life in very subtle ways, and it just terrifies me that that's something she might have to deal with now after this is all over.
Pablo?
Yeah, I think the first thing to establish is that this stuff is real. It's happening. And there are articles that are really good that are worth reading in the LA Times, the New York Times, and from my own experience, just like talking to my brother who was telling me about stuff happening to him on the subway in February. People looking at him, holding their mouths, staring, just like kind of like microaggression stuff is what we call it today. But since then, obviously, we've gotten stories from around the country of people being physically assaulted, people being spit on, people being yelled at, a generation of kids facing a new genre of taunting. And so for me, and my family in New York City, which is theoretically the most cosmopolitan city in the world, we're all self-quarantined now, but they're afraid. There is fear in going outside. There are so many text chains, as I'm sure Mina knows, just among family members, warning, being afraid, saying, hey, be careful, this stuff is happening in a way that we haven't seen. And the only parallel that I can think of, Dan, because there really is no logic behind this bigotry, it's not a byproduct of risk assessment. It's just straight up racism and xenophobia. It's like being, I imagine, from Sri Lanka or India after 9/11, where you read, as Mina put it, you read South Asian in that case. You read Middle Eastern in that case, the uneducated mind. Visually, in this case, if you're Asian in any sort of way, you fear for your safety in a concrete way that people from Italy or France or Spain are not experiencing or feeling right now. And that's kind of the simple equation, right? Why is it happening to these people but not these others, even though the countries they come from are also dealing with what is an indiscriminate disease?
Mina, is the cocktail simply ignorance and fear? Is there anything else happening here? How does one explain racism?
Well, I think it goes beyond racism, right? A couple weeks ago, my God, it's been 2 weeks. I've lost all sense of time and space, I think everyone, but I'm pretty sure this was 2 weeks ago. I retweeted our patron saint, the Lord Jeremy Lin, who quote tweeted some elected official who was using Chinese coronavirus, and he wrote, using this word, defending it is ignorant and divisive. It promotes racism. After a certain point, Dan, I had to mute replies because it was frankly ruining my day. But in the replies, you didn't see straight up racism, right? You didn't see people going after Asians or Chinese people. You saw whataboutism. You saw, some of it. Oh, somebody said this on CNN 2 months ago, so it's fine. And, fake news. You saw people pointing out, well, we used to call it MERS or the Spanish flu, which, by the way, look that up. Ignoring the fact that the World Health Organization changed the guidelines a few years ago, recognizing the stigmatizing power of words. You saw people saying, well, we have to blame the Chinese government for not acting here, which suggests that people are incapable of holding two thoughts in their brain at the same time. And then you saw something I think is behind a lot of this, which isn't just racism. It's sort of this combination of othering and self-determination at all costs, right? This very American idea. You can't tell me what not to say and what not to do, which, by the way, is an attitude I think that's playing out right now and endangering everyone. And I think there's a pretty clear connective fiber between people's dangerous actions right now and these kinds of words.
Kimes and Pablo Torre with us on ESPN Radio. Pablo, I remember feeling for you during the Richie Incognito, Jonathan Martin bullying back and forth, feeling the loneliness of, I don't want to say that Asian racism is in any way acceptable, but we sort of skipped past the way that Richie Incognito was treating an Asian trainer. It didn't have a voice that I heard other than yours shouting and lonely shouting on, hey, why won't you guys pay attention to the fact that amid everything that's happening in this bullying scandal, there's an Asian guy who's getting verbally abused and mistreated?
Yeah, and in that story, it was jokes about Japanese internment. And when you ask about, well, where is this coming from? It's coming from the same forge, the same xenophobic, racist forge that led America to send people into camps during World War II of Japanese descent. That's the through line. That's a direct, clear line that connects all of this stuff. And look, as Asian Americans, I like to think that we're pretty sober-minded. We know that when you do, like, as some have termed it, like the suffering Olympics, there are things that have happened in this country that put what we go through in perspective, and it's worth keeping that. And it's one of my frustrations, for instance, when you refer to anybody who's non-white as a person of color, it tends to kind of erase all of these nuances and distinctions that make one population's experience with racism different from another. However, the defining feature, or a defining feature of the Asian experience in America I have found, is this idea that your individuality is meaningless. So not only are you basically all the same, right? Oh, you're Filipino. Well, you're basically Chinese. Oh, you're not somebody who wants to be stereotyped as a math science genius. Well, guess what? You're going to get that, right? It's the model minority myth as well as this erasure of individuality. But the other one is this notion that your existence in America is defined by this notion that you are forever foreign, that your citizenship is conditional. And that's where, as a racial minority, there is commonality, right? It's this notion that you may be born here. You may have been here since your ancestors built the transcontinental railroad. You may even be a newly arrived immigrant. But whatever the case, you are visibly less American in this case than, say, the Italian tourist who gets to walk around America in the limited fashion any of us can at this point with less fear. And it's that notion that you will never be American that is really heartbreaking about what is happening and what will be happening for a while longer, because this is all just starting.
Do you guys feel even comfortable talking about this, Mina? Like, is this, when you're talking about the fear on text strings, the fear for your parents, is there discomfort in just bringing this even more to the surface?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I shared, I don't know if you guys read, the New York Times had a piece about many of the examples of racism happening around the country, and I just shared it on my feed, and someone wrote back, "Oh, I see, aren't you not supposed to wade into politics?" That's news. It's racism. These are things that are happening in the country. It's not politics, right? And it's so telling, by the way, that people would view it through that lens. And like Pablo said, there aren't many of us, in sports. There's a reason why I said our patron saint, Jeremy Lin, and why we keep going back to him to be a leader for us on these issues, because there are still so few Asian American and Asian athletes in prominent places. There were few enough that Pablo and I could fit them on a single small shrine. And because of that, I feel a great responsibility to speak to people. And I hope, by the way, that, you know, it isn't just going to be Jeremy Lin when we all get out of this, that we find allyship amongst others and other athletes and other people in sports step forward, because there aren't enough of us.
Stugotz, you have a question that you've been dying to ask Pablo Torre.
Yeah, Pablo, I find it pretty hard to believe you've never had a piece of chewing gum.
I had a traumatic experience when I went to grade school, and I can remember it. It was the first time I looked under my desk. And I looked under my desk and saw all of the already been chewed gum that you barbarian cavemen
ABC.
Underneath the ABC gum. You stick it underneath the desk. I remember I ran my hand under my desk absentmindedly and was horrified to discover what people have been doing. So ever since then, man, no, I've never chewed gum in my entire life. That is a fact.
Pablo, Mina, thank you. We appreciate, we value every perspective that you bring on the show, even Pablo's highfalutin ones. Thank you guys for being on with us.
No problem. Boston accent next time.
Okay.
Love you guys.
She's gotten better at the Boston accent. It's still not good, but she's gotten better. If you're in need of some parts, some accessories for your vehicle, go on the website of Advance Auto Parts. Order them today. They will get them to your house. Tell them, Stugotz.
Yep, now more than ever, it's important to think ahead. Advance Auto Parts remains open to help you keep your car up and running at its best. Order online and then pick up in the store so you can get in and out as quickly as possible. Car batteries are in stock. They're starting at just $79.99. They'll test your old battery and install you your new one for free. No appointment necessary. How about that? Just show up to the store. $79.99 in and out. Enter the code DAN20 when you buy online, and you'll save an extra 20%. That's DAN20 when you buy online. Think ahead. Think advance. Only at Advance Auto Parts.
Don Batard.
Stugotz, you know, when we decided to move to South Florida, decided that he was going to move to Neptune.
Yeah.
He thought that would be a good commute. Keeps buying homes further and further north.
Stugotz.
Last time I checked in with him, he was having a home built on stilts in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN.
Missed any of our interviews, check them out on demand in the Dan Le Batard podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Quicksilver Card. Earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase, everywhere. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Dan, it's time for Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
One of the interviews we just did, because we are trying, it is difficult, but we are trying to get you the same amount of content that we normally get you. So the latest South Beach session is with Shea Serrano. His story is bananas. It really is, where he goes from, and I don't want to give away too much, but it's a fascinating story. He goes from making $15 an article in a desperate situation where he had to write as part of a second job while teaching because his wife was under bed rest after giving birth prematurely to twins, to a 3-time New York Times best-selling author. He had no experience with writing. It was necessity is the mother of invention, where he just needed a job, any job that could allow him to hustle, and he's turned it into best-selling book after best-selling book without any training whatsoever in writing. So you should check that out at the latest South Beach session, wherever it is that you get that on your devices. Michael Wilbon, we were making fun of him earlier for this tweet. So people voting in this greatest college basketball player poll on ESPN select Zion Williamson, who didn't get to the Final Four, over Danny Manning, who led his Kansas team to a title. People know nothing unless they saw it this morning on SportsCenter. #sad. And I thought that was the silliest thing that anyone in our sphere had gotten mad about, until I saw that Billy Gill was getting mad at the videos that keep showing up on his computer of people doing parkour and shooting toilet paper into baskets.
Yeah, it's annoying. People that couldn't get toilet paper, Dan. We don't just all walk around CVS and have, dealers come out and say, hey, come in here and get some extra toilet paper so you can make your YouTube's videos. But that's what people are doing. They're playing soccer with their toilet paper. They're playing basketball with their toilet paper. They're playing catch with their toilet paper. It seems like they didn't need that much toilet paper if they're using the toilet paper to play sports with. Am I right? And by the way, here's the thing about toilet paper, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way I do. I like my toilet paper clean. So I don't like toilet paper to have grass on it or dirt on it because I dropped it, stuff from my shoes because I decided to kick my toilet paper. So what are they doing with all this toilet paper besides just wasting it? Because it seems like a lot of toilet paper is getting wasted. Am I the only one that's been bothered by this?
Greg Cote is nodding vigorously here. You've never said something he's agreed with more, right, Cote?
Well, yeah, Billy's 100% right. I mean, this is a time to worship toilet paper and treat it like a religious artifact and use it sparingly, not play kickball with it.
When you guys are using the toilet paper in the bathroom, you guys aren't like actually changing your strategy, right? I'm still using it the exact way I was never an abuser of toilet paper, but I'm still using it the same exact way I've always used it.
I've never realized how much toilet paper I wasted before all of this. Like every sheet, I kind of need someone to explain to me why they need to use more than 2 sheets of toilet paper, and it's 2-ply. So I'm getting close to the point where I'm going to be splitting those plies in half. Is that how that works?
I think so. I've changed my strategy on everything, but I'm wondering once this is over if we'll go back to conserving toilet paper and paper towels. I'm guessing we'll go back to our old habits, right, Billy, where we just waste toilet paper? Because I'm with you. I never realized how much toilet paper and how many paper towels I've wasted before this pandemic.
If you think that I'm going to be eating the ends of bread when this is all over, you're insane.
I learned on the Greg Cote Show podcast that people back in the day used to use, what was it, Greg? Corn on the cob as toilet paper?
In 6th century China, the rich wiped with lace cloth, and the poor were relegated to using corn cobs.
How'd that feel, Greg?
Good, actually.
Kenny G is going to join us next here. We are in need of some soothing, some dulcet sounds. So Kenny G is going to join us after Stugotz tells you who this segment was sponsored by.
It was sponsored by Straight Talk. Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less, only at Walmart.
Don Batard.
I feel terrible.
Here's the thing with you. You don't actually feel terrible.
I didn't feel a thing, to be honest with you. I don't really care.
I know. You announcing I feel terrible is just your way to move on to the next terrible thing you're going to do.
Stugotz.
They're just words, and words mean nothing to you.
They don't mean nothing. His words mean nothing.
Words are just transitions to your next lie.
That's so right. They're not words. They are bridges to lies.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN.
Adam Schefter are expected to cut Cam Newton as early as today, making the former MVP a free agent. Insane. Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, the group who owns the Philadelphia 76ers and the New Jersey Devils, has notified salaried full-time employees they will be subject to temporary pay cuts of up to 20% and will be moving to a 4-day work week as a result of the ongoing fallout from the coronavirus pandemic. And finally, echophobia is the fear of the home. For all the latest headlines and information, tune the Sports Center on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
He is the king of smooth jazz. We need a little bit of soothe jazz here. Maybe later this segment we will try to do a sports radio segment and have Kenny G in the background soothing us with his saxophone. There he is right there. Hello, Kenny. Thank you for being on with us. How are you holding up? Are you're quarantined like everybody else?
Yeah, I'm just doing my part, just like everybody else. I don't have any symptoms. I would think that I don't have it, but you read about people that have the virus and they have no symptoms. So Yeah, I'm just staying at home and blowing my horn. Yeah, what's new?
What did this do to your touring schedule? And you could check out any information you want on KennyG.com. I know that you were here in South Florida recently, right?
Yeah, just before everything got canceled, I was there. I had 8 shows in Florida. On the night of the 7th show, after we finished in Ocala, we were supposed to go to Jacksonville the next day, and I got off stage, and there was a text that said that show was canceled. And since then, we haven't done anything. And I think we've got some shows up in the Bay Area. I know nobody wants to go up there, but I think we've got them starting on May 1st. So they still think they might happen. Other than that, everything's canceled until, June, July, or September. So yeah, I'm just out of work, which is the way it is. Like a lot of people. I feel sorry for those that really live paycheck to paycheck. That's tough. This is going to be really tough for them.
How does this work with you? I know you're always playing the sax anyway. You're telling us that you practice a great deal every day, but I got to imagine that even though you're happy-go-lucky, you're always exuding sort of effervescence. I got to imagine having these shows taken away from you. I would imagine that doing shows right now would be somewhat therapeutic for you.
I wish we could. If we could do shows and everybody could come safely, I'm sure everyone would love to do that. But how do you play at a concert when everyone has to be 6 to 8 feet away from each other? I mean, if people could do that, we would go. But it's just kind of hard. Yeah, I just feel bad that we can't be out there performing, not just for our sake, but people love to go to concerts, and we miss. I miss doing stuff and going to restaurants and going out to the movies. Everybody misses that kind of stuff, but it's important to do what we're doing now, because otherwise it's going to be pretty bad.
You have a lot of famous friends, and if you come on here every single day, because they're not busy either, I'm going to ask you to get one on for us eventually. But have any of your famous friends reached out to you randomly asking you to do songs for them via FaceTime or anything like that?
Not really. Wait, let's see. Who did ask me to do that? My friend Richard Marks asked me to be on. He's doing some sort of a thing from his house, and he wants me to play on that. So I think I'm going to do that in the morning tomorrow. Other than that, no. The only guy that I've really been keeping in touch with is Ray Romano. He's a really good friend of mine. So we've just been texting each other, and that's about it. I haven't really done anything like video chatting with any of my friends. Yeah, I'm just staying at home and just hoping that I don't get sick like everybody else.
Well, if you can help everybody through this fear, Stugotz and I are going to try and do a sports segment. If you would be kind enough, again, go to KennyG.com if you want more information. Back when things get to normal, you will be able to have some more Kenny G in your life. If you can just play for a few minutes here as Stugotz and I try to do a sports radio segment, a little bit of your most soothing stuff here for the American audience who wants something a little bit normal. You have always been very gracious with your time and your talents, and so if you can just throw up your best soothing jazz, as Stugotz and I do, very common sports talk, we would appreciate it, Kenny. As always, it's good talking to you.
It's my pleasure, and of course, no pressure.
America's counting on you. So, Stugotz, I wanted to ask you about the reports that Peyton Manning has again turned down Monday Night Football. He has turned down God knows how many millions of dollars to work, 3 months of the year. I'm wondering how many retired athletes do you believe could actually do that? Like, that is such a sweet job. It is such a cushy job, but he's got so much money. My guess is that he's made more in endorsement money than he would be paid by ESPN. My guess is that he's just made so much money in his life that he doesn't have to sit here and ever get on a flight and go anywhere, and probably doesn't want what little work is required of that job. There are some meetings, there's some production meetings, but some of the reports, Stugotz, were like tens of millions of dollars because these these broadcast entities, as the streaming services get into the game and as football wants to be taken even more seriously than it already is, the money on these broadcasts seems like a lot of money, because it's crazy to talk about these $10 and $20 million contracts for broadcasters until you consider that the NFL rights fees are so expensive that is just a pittance compared to the NFL wanting to just, have a product that is at the highest level. And Peyton Manning, obviously, as your color analyst, one of the most beloved figures in the history of football, part of a royal family in football, can demand whatever he wants from that job. He has now reportedly turned down ESPN twice on what seems like a really super cushy job.
But ESPN could not complete that deal, that trade for Al Michaels, and I think Peyton wants to work with Al Michaels. I'm not certain Tony Romo had to do this either, Dan. He probably had enough money. This is something that if you want to do, then you do it regardless of the money. It's just something you've always wanted to do. Plus, it's easy money because in terms of travel, Peyton does Peyton's Places. I haven't watched a single episode yet, but he travels everywhere. I'm getting to those episodes, but he travels everywhere to do those episodes. So travel is not an issue. I think he just wanted to do it with Al Michaels. And since he is now off the table, I am begging the folks here at ESPN to go after Jay Cutler, because I think Jay Cutler would be fantastic in the Monday Night Booth. I really do. Along with Booker McFarland and Joe Tess, of course.
Stugotz, the idea that let's say the reports are true, 10, 15, $20 million, whatever it is in the Romo range. You think that Peyton Manning wants to work with Al Michaels so badly?
Why do you think they tried to get the deal done, Dan?
I understand that they tried to trade for Al Michaels, but you think that Al Michaels is such a deal breaker that Peyton Manning is saying, you're 10, you're 15, you're $20 million. I'll take it if you bring me Al Michaels, but if you don't bring me Al Michaels, and I don't know, who would be second place? Like, who, in terms of pedigree and in terms of talent as a play-by-play guy, you think that Peyton Manning would say no thanks to Bob Costas or whoever it is that you're putting in second place on play-by-play in terms of name and stature?
Well, I think Al Michaels is second place because I view Jim Nantz as first place. And I know Tony Romo is the star of that show, but I think, we don't give Nantz enough credit for what kind of job he does setting up Romo and allowing Romo to breathe and allowing Romo to step all over his words and step over his every call of every single play and every single game. Nantz is okay with that. And I think Peyton Manning wanted to go into the booth with someone that he felt confident in and felt confident in that he would allow Peyton Manning to be the guy to shine. I do believe there's something there. I'm not certain if there's a cutoff for Peyton Manning. I don't know if it's Joe Tess. I don't know who it is. But clearly it was obvious to everyone that Peyton Manning wanted to work with Al Michaels. I mean, that was obvious to everyone.
At Batard Show, put it on the poll on Twitter. First place in broadcasting, Jim Nantz or Al Michaels? Because I believe that you just said something that is totally blasphemous. I believe is what you just did right there.
Well, does Michaels do the Super Bowl and then mosey on over to the Final Four, and then once he's done with the national championship game and gives his tie to the MVP, does he then mosey on to Augusta to call the Masters for 4 days every year? No, is the answer. Only Jim Nantz does that. Why? Because he's the greatest.
Kenny, we appreciate your time as always. We appreciate you forever tolerating all of our nonsense. You are the best. I feel slightly more soothed than I felt before. Hopefully we will catch up again with you soon. Thank you as always for making the time for us, sir.
It's my pleasure, and Jim Nantz is the best.
We're back next.
Dan Le Batard.
Hey, Dave.
Stugotz.
What up?
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Back in time. I love that. Way back to 2019 when two-time American League MVP Mike Trout signed the biggest contract in professional sports history, a $426.5 million 12-year extension with the Angels. That bested the previous record, which was set a month prior when Bryce Harper signed a $330 million deal with the Phillies. Delivering the products that keep your facility running is what Grainger does best. They've been doing it for 90 years. Visit Grainger.com for whatever you need, whenever you need it. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I want to do something here around here at some point where we open up, instead of Oprah's book club, a binge club where we go around and you guys give some recommendations on the things that you're watching. And I told you earlier in the show, we were talking about the show right now that is #1 on Netflix. It is one of the oddest things you will ever see, a docuseries in 7 parts about the strange world of people who have private zoos and collect exotic animals for profit. It is dirty. It is foul. It is just a beautiful place for you to be able to rain down your judgment on weirdos on Netflix. And Ron Magill is going to join us in about 15 minutes. And he knows all of these people, Stugotz. Every one of them is stranger than the next. It is a bit hard to explain. Mike and I were talking about it earlier, but I did not get your thoughts on the first episode. Just how strange these people are, and what cults they've established around themselves, where they have a whole bunch of people who are working for nothing because they care so much about the animals, but the upkeep on something like a big cat, where you cost $10,000 a year to feed a big cat, and how you have to feed a big cat, which is disgusting. And they have hundreds of big cats, right. And they are the workers, among other things, are themselves, because they're paid so little, eating some of the expired meats that the zoo gets when stores have to get rid of their meats to not just feed the big cats, but to feed themselves. We're going to talk to Ron Magill. It is absolutely as binge-worthy as anything I've seen since the O.J. Simpson documentary that is now going to air on ESPN as well. But I didn't get your thoughts specifically on what you thought of that first episode, because once you start watching that show, I don't believe there are going to be a whole lot of people, unless they're simply disgusted by the idea of these animals being mistreated. I don't think that once anybody starts that show, they're going to stop watching that show.
Unless you're my wife, Dan, because she stopped after an episode. Like, she enjoyed it for the first half hour or so, but it's just not in her wheelhouse. I was thoroughly enjoying it. It's strange, it's crazy, it's bizarre, but I really liked it. And after the first episode, she said, that's a show. If you want to watch the rest of it, you're going to have to do so by yourself, because I'm not in on that show. So it did not appeal to her, but it did appeal to me. I love it. I love it's a little bit wacky. It's seriously crazy. I had no idea that people took tigers this seriously, and there's such a big market. Shaquille O'Neal would buy pet tigers from one of the guys. So I only saw the first episode, which had the 3 groups, and I guess they introduced that 4th group in the second episode, because the 3 groups I had was the original guy in Oklahoma, and then you had his competitor who was doing it, I think, in South Carolina. We never mentioned him. He rides around town on an elephant, okay? And then there's a 3rd group, which is the rescue group, but I guess they're a scam, where they're portraying that they are trying to save these tigers and give them a happy place to live. But it appears, I guess, that she is also trying to make money off of these tigers. So, which is a heady play, by the way, given the appearance that you're trying to take care of them while doing the exact same thing as the other 2 guys are doing.
Ron Magill knows all of these kooks and these weirdos. We did mention the guy. Mike talked at length about the guy who rides around on an elephant. Yes, he seems to own an elephant and just rides from place to place while having a harem, by the way. He's got just a harem of employees and young women that he's fascinating for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is he's always in television persona. Like, he is always like, hey, turn on your camera. I am ready to give it to you. And Mike was weirded out because he couldn't believe that The Undertaker the other day was spending some time in this tiger sanctuary. The places look like Sri Lanka right up until you see the way the employees are being treated, and that behind the scenes, it's simply awful.
It truly does feel equal parts Sri Lanka, equal parts Myrtle Beach. And yeah, I've been obsessed recently with these photos and this video that came out of The Undertaker at a tiger sanctuary, at a big cat sanctuary. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, And it turns out that he's at Doc Antle's Big Cat Sanctuary in Myrtle Beach, and it's almost as if Doc knew that he had to get out in front of this whole Tiger King thing, and he went into PR mode, and his whole deal was to reach out to The Undertaker for some good PR.
Now, I'm certain no one agrees with these guys profiting off the Tigers, but it appears to me, am I wrong, guys, that the Tigers appear to be very, very happy there. They do.
God, no. Oh, God, no.
But they seem so happy. They seem like they're friends. I mean,
put it on the poll. No, you didn't. Did you skip over the part where it said that Tigers need 400 miles to roam and they're in cages?
Well, I saw that part, but then they keep going back to the part where they don't have the places where they don't have 400 feet to roam, and they appear to be very, very happy. Now, listen, I'm just watching a TV show.
400 miles, Stugotz, not 400 feet, 400 miles.
400 miles, I understand it, but she's scamming everyone also, okay? I mean, the one who's offering up the 400 miles is scamming everyone also. I'm just saying to go back to the two in Oklahoma and South Carolina, and those big cats appear to be very, very happy. They do.
They are not happy. Put it on the poll.
How do you know?
Batard Show. Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Do the Tigers appear to be happy? I've been wanting to get to Billy and Greg Cote's thoughts because we're sitting here talking about, Burrow or Tua and which way to go at the very same time that you see that the market has dried up after all of those months we spent talking about who would you rather have, Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota. Now, Mariota signed a great contract in now Las Vegas, but Jameis Winston, the market is totally cold on him, and I guess Tua went yesterday to social media, and he looked like he was moving around very well, and Billy's theory here is that he might fall to number 5 just because no one can work him out. Greg Cote, Miami Herald, longtime football columnist. Your thoughts on Tua to the Dolphins?
I think it's going to happen.
It's Dan, Stu, and Greg Cote on ESPN Radio.
Attention.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show.
Big stats. Big fats.
Dan Le Batard.
Are you a naked pooper?
Stugotz.
How about that?
This is the real base.
Your how about that is one of the best things about you when you feel like you made a good point, and we're looking at you right now. You were in your chair. You were just like, here, this is what you do. Ba-ding, 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 bada bang.
Yep.
Boom. And then you're pleased with yourself, and then you just tell the audience and me, how about that?
That's me announcing. I'm just going to sit back now and let you guys discuss what it is I just threw out there.
Discuss my brilliance.
Bases pumping.
I didn't eat as much as I normally eat on Super Bowl Sunday. I had 15 wings.
I just told you what it is. It's Super Bowl Sunday.
It should be Super Bowl Saturday for this exact reason. It's the most obvious thing in the world, and I can't believe no one will agree, figure it out. I mean, let's go. Why are we doing this to people?
I don't know who else I would go to on the list of people who are great at their jobs, but then you're not going to leave or stay. You can't either cough quietly or leave. You need me to stop everything I'm doing to attend to the fact that you can't drink correctly?
I'm joking, man. Kind bar.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
How about that? What does any of that mean? Honestly.
The reason that dogs' noses are cold. Did you know that, McGill? Did you know? You probably knew that already, right, McGill?
Well, I kind of knew that, yes.
Yeah, well, of course you did. Here's the select quote. You better. Here's the select quote difference. Most companies give you one option, one policy, one rate, but select quote shops that could get you up to 10 options from highly rated life insurance companies for a free personalized quote. Call 800-780-1010 or go to selectquote.com today. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to Sports Center on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
So sometimes we have to explain the jokes around here, and we are wildly unprofessional and sloppy under normal circumstances, even more so now. But at the end of segments on Greg Cote Tuesdays, there is a hard network out. It has been the same time for many years. Greg Cote refuses to learn it. For a couple of years, I was wearing a baseball cap that had a digital clock on it to help him. It was not helpful in any way, and so I'm explaining this joke for the few of you who might be listening for the first time. The last segment did not end sloppily because we're incompetent. This one started sloppily because we're incompetent. The last one ended sloppily because Greg Cote has no idea when the clock is going to hit him. He talked. I wish America could have seen the faces as Greg Cote gave a Tua analysis that was a full 2 minutes long as we all stared at him. He got clipped like 4 syllables in, and he kept talking for a full 2 minutes to nobody at all, and now he wants to defend himself. What, Greg?
Oh, no.
Well, I have no idea. I don't get the boat horn to tell me when I've been cut off, so I keep talking. And now people are tweeting, does Greg Cote have a clock in his house? Yeah, I have a clock. We're not synchronized. Does anybody really know what time it is? I don't know exactly when the 32 is coming. So now, doing this remotely, I have zero chance to not make the hard network out.
All right, Greg.
It's diabolical.
The time, the way that you tell the time on this is simply whenever I ask you a long-winded question, that's the way to know every time because I usually don't go to you. But let's talk to Ron Magill because we've been talking about this amazing docu-series, and I want to talk to Magill for a while about this. The Tiger King is the name, or Tiger King is the name of the Netflix documentary. Magill knows everyone in it. He binged the whole thing, Stugotz, yesterday. He watched all 7 episodes, wow. And this is how a lot of people are going to end up watching this thing. So without giving too much away, Ron, what can you tell us about your observations? You knew these people, you know these people, but you didn't know them this way, did you?
I didn't know to the extent of how whacked out of his mind this guy, Joe Exotic, is. I mean, I realized he was an oddball. I didn't agree with the things he was doing at all. I've said it many times on network television that, this whole thing of keeping these animals as pets and using their cubs to make money by selling pictures with them is something I abhor. But having said that, this guy is so whacked beyond even that. I mean, that's the least of his totally messed up mentality with these animals. This is a series about not just wild animals and keeping them as pets in your yard, but it's about sex. It's about alleged murder. It's about all kinds of. You couldn't make this stuff up if you wrote it. If you wrote this and put it in a book, they go, "This is the dumbest book I ever read. None of this would ever happen."
Well, I thought the most normal of the private zookeepers was the drug lord from Miami who was sentenced to 100 years in prison and served 12. You know Mario, right?
I know Mario very well. I knew him very well, and I actually worked with him way back when I started 30-something years ago. He taught me how to hand raise a lot of animals. I will say this about Mario. He loves animals, and he knows his stuff about working with animals. He openly admitted to me afterwards, he made a lot of bad mistakes, did a lot of bad things, but at the end of the day, as far as his caring for animals, I think he does an incredible job doing so. Do I agree with what he does with those animals, like having a chimpanzee and taking pictures? No, absolutely not. And he knows that because though I respect his knowledge of animals, I no longer will ever go to his facility or anything like that because I totally disagree with that philosophy.
So you knew him back when? You knew him when he was Scarface? Because he
I knew him before he got busted, yes. And then went through the whole process of when he did get busted. I will tell you, Dan, I remember remember working in his warehouse because I was working with animals. They're learning how to work with different animals. I didn't get the opportunity to work with at the zoo. And I remember he had a briefcase like you saw in the movie on his desk, and he'd open the briefcase and you'd see all those $100 bills wrapped in those perfect little, like you see in the movies. I mean, this is like a movie stuff. But one thing I will tell you, all the things that he did and he admitted he did, he never, ever did it in front of me. I never saw any semblance of that other than that briefcase I remember seeing with money. I think he had to get a key out of it to give me something to give in the back room, and he opened the briefcase, and I couldn't help but see what's in the briefcase and going, holy jeez, this is like, those were the Miami Vice days, and I'm thinking, I'm living an episode of Miami Vice here.
Now, Dan and Mike watched 2 episodes, Ron. You watched the entire thing. I watched 1. I'm wondering, though, and I'm guessing a lot of people still haven't watched it. They're hearing about it for the first time. So without trying to give too much away, what made you angriest watching this series?
Just the fact that we have so many people with this mentality of keeping these animals as pets, thinking they can make money out of them, exploiting them by kind of anthropomorphizing them, thinking, oh, come on, everybody wants to swim in a pool with a tiger. Everybody wants to lay down on their belly and take a picture with a baby tiger that has been ripped away from its mother for the sole purpose of making money out of it. And then most likely when that tiger gets to be a mature adult, it is dumped somewhere, or worse than that, killed and thrown into a pit because it's no longer useful making money because you can't take pictures with it anymore. And that's what happens with a lot of these situations, okay? And I'm hoping that this series, as crazy as these people were, opens people's eyes up and they start looking at some of these things and saying, wait a minute. Now, I gotta stipulate that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are truly some good sanctuaries that do an incredible job of caring for their animals. But what you saw in this series is not those sanctuaries. This guy, oh my God, my blood pressure boils when I think about what I was watching. I couldn't even lay down on the couch watching it. I had to sit on the edge of the couch staring on the television like I wanted to jump in there and punch him. I mean, it's just unbelievable what goes on. And unfortunately, most people don't know about it because a lot of this goes on like in places like Oklahoma and Ohio. But here in Florida, we've got a problem with that too in some of these roadside attractions. So people need to understand. I can't tell you how many times I've done interviews on Good Morning America, CNN, every time there's been a tiger attack or some other attack in one of these places where, it turns out it's one of these roadside attractions where they just don't have the right conditions to maintain these animals properly.
I've seen you interact with animals, Ron, and they love you. And I am wondering, because what I see when I watch the first episode is a bunch of happy big cats who are being loved and they are loving back. Is it possible that these tigers are happy? Is it possible, Ron?
Happy is a hard term to interpret when it comes to animals. I think many of those animals are physically healthy, yes. I don't think it's normal. Tigers are solitary animals. It's not normal to see 10 tigers in one pen. No, it's not a kumbaya thing where they think, oh, look, we're all one happy family. We're all brothers and sisters. I love you. I love you. I don't think that is normal. I think at the end of the day that puts a stress that might not be easily seen by a layperson, but the animal is stressed that way. There'll be scenes in this thing, if you haven't seen them yet, where these animals get in some pretty brutal fights. That is not acceptable. That's just not acceptable. So people need to get that out of their heads. Again, there are some legitimate sanctuaries that are doing a good job of rescuing cats from places like this guy's place. When they get confiscated and there's no place to put them, there are places that are taking them in and doing the right job and protecting them. But I would have to say the majority of people in this country who are keeping lions and tigers and similar types of animals in their backyards as quote-unquote sanctuaries are not sanctuaries. They're exploiting these animals to make money.
Ron, stay there. I'd like to talk to you more about what is the most bingeable thing on Netflix at the moment. Tiger King is the name of the 7-part docuseries. But before we do that with Ron Magill, let's tell you about Advance Auto Parts. We continue to ask you to support the sponsors who support us. If you're in need of some advice about your car when you get back out on the street, head over to Advance Auto Parts. You can also check them out online. Stugotz, tell the people.
Yep, now more than ever, it's important to think ahead. Advance Auto Parts remains open to help you keep your car up and running at its best. Order online and then pick up in the store so you can get in and out as quickly as possible. Car batteries are in stock and starting at just $79.99. They'll test your old battery and install your new one for free, no appointment needed. And you can enter the code DAN20 when you buy online, so you'll save an extra 20%. That's DAN20 when you buy online to save an extra 20%. Car batteries right now, just $79.99, and they have them in stock. They'll get you in and out as quickly as possible. Think ahead. Think advance. Only at Advance Auto Parts.
And now, the Ron Magill Show.
Hey, Ron, if Dan were eaten by a grizzly bear, how long could that grizzly bear live off of Dan's fat alone? Dan, you're fat.
Theoretically, you could probably go through hibernation through the winter.
Straight from Zoo, Miami, it is Ron Magill.
McGill, what's the strangest thing you've shared a hotel room with?
I had a cheetah in my bed.
Yeah, you did.
Didn't we all?
Here is Ron Magill, Stugotz, and Dan Batard on ESPN Radio.
If you missed any of the show, you can listen to all 3 hours of the Dan Batard Show, plus our Miami-only hour and our Best of podcast on demand in the ESPN app, and subscribe to the Batard and Friends podcast network featuring South Beach Sessions, Stupidity, and Mystery Crate. Please rate and subscribe. New episodes are posted every week wherever you get your podcasts. Ron Magill continues with us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line.
So, Ron, help me out with this. Can you tell us, just for the people who haven't seen this Netflix docuseries, Tiger King, can you explain to us just how much saner Mario from Miami, who is Scarface Cuban and was sentenced to 100 years in prison but served 12 after appeal, how much saner he is than all the other people here who have private zoos?
I don't know if sanity has anything to do with it. He's just, I guess, more normal. He just, he's a normal guy. He loves animals. He's obsessed with animals. I do not agree with his philosophy of, bringing animals to birthday parties and charging to take pictures and raising chimps to have people come and take pictures and, pay a bunch of money to take a picture with a chimp because it's giving the wrong message. Dan, the bottom line is this. You can take an animal out of the wild. You can never take the wild out of the animal. And I think sometimes those situations are just accidents waiting to happen. And listen, I don't want to come off as Mr. Squeaky Clean. When I was younger, I was all into that stuff, man. I wanted to take pictures with the cubs. I wanted to do all that stuff. But as you get older, you get experience, you learn more. I realized that I was making huge mistakes back then. So I got to do all I can now to try to rectify that and make people understand this is not a cool thing to do. And I understand it's hard to say, man, everybody sees it, a cub and they want to hold a cub. I understand that. But once they understand where these cubs come from, that they're pulled from their mothers, they're pulled strictly for the purpose of being able to sell the opportunity to take a picture with it. And once it gets too big to be used for that type of purpose, it's basically discarded. It's cast to a life of hell. That's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable, and we've got to get that across to people. So, listen, Mario is a unique character in and of himself, okay? He takes good care of his animals. I will say that, but I don't agree with the reason that he has the animals.
Ron, Doc Antle to me is like the most fascinating character so far. I'm only 2 episodes in. You know all the players in this documentary. What can you tell us with your about your dealings with Doc Antle?
Well, I know Doc very well, and he's raised a lot of animals. But listen, the guy has several wives. He has a very nefarious past. He's a unique character. I personally got along with him fine. He's never done anything bad to me. But again, he is taking these animals to parties, to events. He doesn't do the basic little 5-year-old party. He goes to the thousands of dollar events. He'll rent an elephant to come make a grand entrance in, some millionaire's party. This is the wrong message, man. We can't do that. And again, listen, I wasn't the squeaky. Way back when, 20 years ago, I did that kind of stuff. I was the kind of guy that went to events with an animal to make money. I remember taking a snow leopard to a club here in Miami called Cats. I was 25 years old with a snow leopard in Cats, surrounded by all these beautiful women dressed as cats. And I'm thinking, does it get any better than this? Well, I was an idiot. And I realized that, first of all, I could have gotten killed by that leopard. I had all the confidence. The leopard worked out fine. Everything was fine. I was lucky. But more importantly, I was given the wrong message. Here, bring this little kitty cat and bring all the other little kitty cats around it because here's a club. Because I remember going into the bathroom and I'm watching guys doing lines of coke off of the counter with guns on their hips, in these Gucci suits. And I'm thinking, What the hell have I gotten into? I'm a guy who's never had an alcoholic drink in my life. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life. All of a sudden, I'm going to the bathroom in a club where guys are doing lines of cocaine off of countertops with guns in their holster and Gucci suits. And I'm thinking, what is this? It was another world. But, when you're young, you get caught up in all that crap. And I'm hoping that I've grown a little bit wiser.
You also had several wives back then, right?
Oh, come on, Dan.
Stugotz, what do you have for Ron Magill?
Ron, it sounds like a wild time, by the way, Ron. I am wondering, though, Ron, on a serious note here, I am wondering, not that wasn't serious, how do your Zoo Miami, how you handle a pandemic like the one we're going through right now?
Well, it's tough in the sense that we've had to close the zoo to the public. But having said that, people need to realize that, first of all, animals that we know of right now cannot be killed by the the COVID-19 pandemic that we're feeling right now. We don't have any documented cases of an animal contracting that disease. Having said that, we do know that they are potential carriers. We do not have any problems with the animals here. We've had to adjust our staff because, of course, the animals still have to get fed, get taken care of. We have what we call this Alpha Bravo staff now, where we've split the staff in 2 shifts. We've compartmentalized the staff so people don't interact with one another. So if somebody from one of the teams gets sick, we have another team that can back it up because we'd have to send that whole team home according to the rules set up here now. So we've got to, this whole social spacing has become a big challenge for us because we have teams working together. If we're working something like the tiger area, we don't have a keeper working that area by themselves. So they have to space themselves, but where they can still keep an eye on each other because that's a safety issue. We have all the food we need. You're hearing all this stuff of people raiding grocery stores. People don't have food. That's not true at all for us. We've had plenty of food. As a matter of fact, the restaurants are thankful to us because we use the same vendors that the restaurants do to buy their produce and their foods and their meats and things. But now the restaurants aren't ordering them. So these the farmers are dying because they're not getting the orders that they need, and we're filling a lot of those orders by bringing the food in for the animals. We spend over $1 million a year just to feed the animals here at the zoo. So all in all, if you were to come to the zoo today, you'd think, well, it's the exact same thing, except there's no public here because the animals are still going out on exhibit. We're still doing the normal routines with the animals. They're still going through their health care. All the veterinary work that's being done. That's all being done the same way. It's just there's no public.
Ron, we will talk to you next week, sir. Thank you for the time.
All right, guys. Be safe. Take care.
We are endeavoring to find Mike Leach again, riding his bike throughout Key West. Find out next if we found him.
Don Batard.
You need to listen to Kushlash.
What is that?
Stugotz.
Kushlash. 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 Kushlash.
Wow.
That cleared things up.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Expecting Mike Leach here in just a minute on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Our daily check-in with the coach. We love him. Here's your SportsCenter update. Dallas Cowboys Pro Bowl center Travis Frederick announced his retirement as he continues his battle with an autoimmune disease that affects the nervous system. Tua has posted a video of him throwing long passes and working on his footwork ahead of the draft. And finally, Brevard County, Florida, added the area code 321 in 1999 as a nod to Kennedy Space Center and the rocket launch countdown sequence that happened there. Wendy's has breakfast now. We're talking fresh cracked eggs on every breakfast sandwich. Yep, it's going to be America's favorite breakfast. Download the Wendy's app for deals on your new favorite breakfast. You up for this? See you at Wendy's in the morning, available at participating U.S. Wendy's. Thanks for clapping, Mike. I have set the bar so low. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
I sort of want to get Mike Leach's opinion on whether he would go Tua or Burrow, but first I want to get his opinion on, and theories in general, on the Bermuda Triangle. What do you have for us there, Mike Leach, Mississippi State coach? Do you have any theories? Have you read anything about the Bermuda Triangle? Are you believing that planes and boats just disappear into the ocean?
Well, we know that they disappear. We don't know for sure why they disappear. And don't know a ton about it. I mean, first of all, it's a high trafficked area, and it's a high trafficked area. What is it? It's let's see, it's Miami, San Juan to Bermuda, right?
Your guess is as good as mine, Mike.
Yep, that sounds right, Mike.
I
Yeah.
expected you to be the expert.
I think it's the triangle from Miami to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I might be off on that one. You guessed it, Bermuda. And so then, and that space in there, which is a huge area, and there's tremendous traffic. There's also, but some places there's some kind of magnetism, that affects things, and that could be one of those places. There's these spots off the coast of Alaska where a number of planes go down. They don't. One, there's not the traffic that there is in the Bermuda Triangle, but I saw this kind of special, which didn't think much about it. But then I was up there in Alaska fishing, and I asked these guys about it, several people, to see if they'd heard of it. Hell, they'd all heard of it, but Alaska acts like a plane going down. It's like, well, that's just part of the business, and well, I guess we won't see them anymore until the hereafter, And so they have an ambivalence towards that sort of thing that I haven't quite gotten my arms around. But there's these triangles up there where they say that you have to that the equipment goes screwy and something about some I don't know, the continents or whatever. There's some sort of magnetic rocks or something like that. I don't know the source and what caused it, but they think somehow the magnetism gets all screwed up and that thing spins around. I mean, hell, maybe your compass is telling you to go north, and you've gone as far north as you can, and then the thing just loses it. I don't know.
What else did you learn about Alaska?
Well, there's a lot of fish there. I'll tell you one. There's plenty of fish. In this whole crisis, Alaska is not going to run out of fish. There's so many places. How remote Alaska is truly amazing. It's one of the most beautiful places ever. And I just kind of on the same curious subjects, I asked them about, the glaciers and melting, because, the Brandenburg Glacier is certifiably melting. And then the guy says that you see over there, and it looks just like a mountain. He says that never used to be there. And so I guess it's a new glacier forming over there. So I don't know what, the ground's changing and shifting and some things like that. And I think that you can really witness it there in Alaska. One thing that was pretty neat, you'd come off these boats, and it would be usually a combination of three things, could be more, but you'd catch halibut, different varieties of salmon, and then cod, cod and rockfish, right? And they gut these things and cut the fish up, and they'd save all those guts, and then they put them in these buckets, and then they'd go out and they'd just toss them along the beach. And as they toss those along the beach, these eagles, a combination of golden eagles and bald eagles, would just come out of nowhere and just start dive bombing and feasting on the what's left of the fish, and I mean, just literally sitting there, munching away, eating away, occasionally fighting over a piece of fish. You'd see these eagles fight each other a little bit, and just like clockwork, though, every night. It was really, really impressive, and they were like right there. It wasn't this type of thing where 100 yards away there's an eagle. No, like 10 yards away there's an eagle, and it really was kind of impressive, and just the scenery and all that stuff. High seas there too.
When's the next time Mike Leach is going to wear jeans?
What's the last time?
Gene, probably pretty quick. I'm in Florida right now, but probably within the first couple of days of me getting to Starkville.
Yeah, but not in the Keys, right? Like it is desolate in the Keys. I'm reading it must be paradise there. I know we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's paradise, but it also must be eerie because nothing is going on business-wise there, and it doesn't seem like anything's going on there in terms of traffic. It must be wonderful given the weather, quiet, but a bit lonely.
It's great as far as riding your bike. It does have a Twilight Zone quality. There's not very much open. It's all takeout. Stuff closes early, unpredictably early. But yeah, you can ride right down the street pretty quick, like. And then the worst of it is, I mean, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not because I'm not the medical expert here, but they closed all the beaches but one. You know, there's three entities: the state, the county, the city. Well, the city couldn't wait to close the beaches, you know, because they, like to be politically on top of it. Here's the guidelines. Well, we're going to improve on it 2 clicks. I mean, it's ridiculous. But so they couldn't wait to close something, and then the state closed the state beaches. There's one county beach that's still open. It's a very small one. And I don't know the science on it. I guess nobody does, but it seems as long as the groups aren't too clustered together, that salt air and wind would probably be pretty good against this stuff. But yeah, that's the one thing is just even a peaceful walk down the beach. That's off the table too.
Mike Leach is with us here on ESPN Radio. Mike, this show loves food. You love food. Our show in particular loves tacos. Mike Leach, build us the perfect taco.
Okay, always corn shells. Always corn shells.
Wow.
And I'm soft corn. None of that crunchy Taco Bell corn. Although I always get them. That's not like that's something, but it's not exactly what I consider, authentic taco, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so always corn shell. And then my favorite meat-wise, and the chicken tacos are generally good depending how they season the meat. My favorite overall is carne asada, and which I think is outstanding. So then you got what the carne asada is marinated with. And then I kind of go 2 ways on this. I think there's room for both. One is you just go the street taco thing where there's some onions, cilantro on there, some sauce, and you go that route. But I also like not so much lettuce, but I like tomato, onions on the tacos. And so I would say those are pretty ideal. I like pinto beans better than black beans, which is sort of a minority opinion.
A controversial stand by Mike Leach.
And I like pinto beans better than refried beans too. Like once in a while, you'll get these places where you have the choice of black beans, refried beans, or pinto beans. So, I'm one of the guys where that makes them they look at you strange and makes them finally dent a pinto bean bowl there.
Before we get you out of here, Mike, and we will talk to you again tomorrow if you'll have us until the end of time. Have you ever been to a nude beach?
Yes, I have. Okay, so let me think. Nude beaches I've been to. Let's see, that one. I never took my gear off. I've never dressed up, so to speak, for the nude beach. Let's see. I've been to Black's Beach in San Diego. And these nude beaches, from my experience anyway, are typically kind of come as you are beaches. In other words, it's not legislated, and some people will choose to take their gear off. Let's see. I've been to Black's Beach in San Diego, which is a very scenic beach with cliffs. And I think that's why it's kind of regarded as a nude beach, because there's enough cliffs and little nooks and crannies people can slip back there and take their clothes off if they feel like it. When I was at Pepperdine, there was a beach, and I think it was called Smuggler's Cove. I was never sure what they called it. So at the end of Zuma Beach, there's like these cliffs. No, it's not the wild and woolly fun that you guys enjoy in Miami. I mean, it's just basically.
No. Well, we're unfortunately out of time. We're going to have more tomorrow, but just give me a name. The coach in your conference most likely to partake and dress down in a nude beach situation.
Who would in our conference? Okay, so in the SEC, let's see, nude beach. Okay, I think there's some closet dubious guys that would, slip out there and let the freak fly a little bit. Now, obviously, I can't say their names, but you can kind of
Lane Kiffin.
Saban.
You can run their faces through your mind. Okay, so I mean, this will be a good activity. So, I mean, as handsome as we are, get our face locked into your minds, and then now. Once you get that locked in, and that'll obviously be a very appealing image, then imagine what we look like with our pants off. And, that'll really put the thing over the top right there.
That's why they call him Coach O. Thank you for being on with us, Mike. We will talk to you again tomorrow, okay?
All right, thanks.
See you, Mike.
Don Batard.
Should Greg Cote of the Miami Herald be allowed to wear a clothespin on his nose?
Hell yeah.
When we smear cat food on his face in a little bit? But you know what he told me, Mike? He told me he suffers from GERD.
Stugotz.
I do suffer from GERD, and I'm got a message to Dr. McGillicuddy. He's trying to fax over an injunction to prevent me from doing it, because I do suffer from GERD, the digestive reflux disease.
Yeah.
GERD, like Gerd Müller, the former soccer player from Germany. And, it's a serious thing, whether you're laughing about it or not. GERD it.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Does anybody really know what time it is?
Today on ESPN Daily, as the NBA's hiatus continues, pro basketball in China could resume play in coming weeks. Learn why picking up where they left off might not be so easy. That's ESPN Daily with Mina, presented by ADT. Download, subscribe, and review ESPN Daily, available wherever you enjoy your podcast. Greg Cote giving us the Straight Talk is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Is Mike Leach the height of sports entertainment? We go from what I believe to be the height of sports entertainment to some really crappy production by Chris Cote. Let's go ahead and play that, Bristol. Let's play a new segment we debuted yesterday.
Hey, everybody, get out of the way. It's time for Roy's 90s Hockey Player of the Day. Take it away, Roy.
All right, today's 90s Player of the Day is Owen Nolan. He's one of 48 players to play out of the United Kingdom in the National Hockey League. He was drafted first overall by the Quebec Nordiques, where he played 5 years and half of a season when he relocated to Colorado before being traded to San Jose for San Jose. He spent 8 years there, was captain for a couple of years. He played 1,200 total games, 422 goals, 463 assists, and 885 points overall. That's today's 90s Player of the Day.
Good segment.
Really amazing that you know all of that off of the top of your head. It is also totally incongruous that you care about hockey the way that you do. Greg Cote and Mike Ryan both have opinions, strong opinions, on what sports needs to do right now in the middle of this apocalypse. Mike, you start before we go to Cote.
Well, number one, I have to pick my jaw up off the floor. I had no idea Owen Nolan was from the United Kingdom, so great find there, Roy. I don't mean to be alarmist, but say we flatten the curve at the most hopeful, aggressive timeline. It's not like people are going to stop getting COVID-19, and it's extremely contagious. A sport like basketball where they share a ball, I feel like if the NBA comes back, under a different situation, which is like we're just going back to our normal lives, people are still going to be contracting this disease. People are still going to be getting it, and you're going to have a situation where someone's going to get it during the playoffs, and it'll totally nuke your season. I think we have to cancel this entire sports year. I really do.
Greg Cote agrees with you. We will wait for a second here as Mike Ryan moves his headset over to the speaker because we are here at the Worldwide Leader, and we only have 2 headsets here. Cote, your thoughts on what Mike Ryan just said?
Yeah, I wrote a column on this today. In fact, the NBA and the NHL need to announce soon.
It's Dan, Stu, and Greg Cote on ESPN Radio.